Big international news coming out of the weekend. The official story, at least, is that the now long-standing protests in Iran appear to have achieved one of their goals, which is the removal of the so-called morality police. That's what they're saying, at least. We're gonna dive into the actual evidence. So the Attorney General said the morality police, quote, was abolished by the same authorities who installed it. This was back on Saturday during a meeting of Iranian officials. This is a group that's overseen by the Iranian police, not the Attorney General, importantly. And there were suggestions the next day that the government might be trying to play down the significance of that announcement. Iran's foreign minister was asked about this at a news conference in Serbia on an official visit. Didn't deny it, but said, quote, in Iran, everything is moving forward well in the framework of democracy and freedom, which is a vague statement on its face. And when you think at all about that government, its history is utterly meaningless. Let's see. The judiciary would still enforce restrictions on social behavior, the Attorney General had said. Days earlier, he said that the authorities were reviewing the law requiring women to cover their bodies in long, loose clothing and their hair with a headscarf or hijab, and would issue a declaration within 15 days. Anyway, a state television channel says that the comments had been taken out of context. So I will say, as a non-expert, believe it when we see it and be inclined to not believe it up until then, actually. Not just neutrality. I think that neutrality in the face of this statement would be ridiculous based on longstanding history of the regime and its relationship with the Iranian people, and in particular, the way that they have treated those protesters as individuals and as a collective movement since it began. So probably not, those words are probably not worth much in practice, but Brett, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. This is one of those things where I'm not in a position to say with great confidence what is actually happening in Iran. My guess is that, well, it's also striking how varied what's coming out of Iran is. If it is the plan, well, then it's a good plan of having people basically look at it as like a Rorschach test for what they want to believe. Oh, is that I can find one message that makes it seem like something I want to happen is going on in there. But on the other hand, it could just signal that they're disorganized and they don't know, and they're not doing a good job of communicating this to the world. But if you just look at the long-standing record of the regime, then I mean it doesn't seem like, I'll believe it when I see it. The problem is I don't know if I can believe these videos that I see all weekend of like, here's what it looked like at the mall. No one has a hijab on.
Yeah, well, and see that for literally years, because I am genuinely shocked on a daily basis that in the face of so much violence and oppression, protesters have been able to keep this movement moving forward. When it's disbanded, in theory, you can spool it back up, but that's much harder, much more difficult. And so it is, I think, reasonable to assume that Iran's goal is not to actually give the protesters what they want, but to do literally whatever it takes to stop the protests for a week, for a day, for a minute, knowing that that will give them time to regroup and make it less likely that this sort of thing will happen in the future. So anyway, my view of this is largely irrelevant. On social media and through journalism contacting sources inside of Iran, it's been very clear that Iranian women, activists in the movement, see this as a propaganda tactic. They don't, I'm sure opinions vary, but they don't believe that this is genuine. So it would seem ridiculous for me as an outsider to side with the official line over the people who are fighting in this. Shadi Seder tweeted out, why scrapping the morality police is not big news. Hijab is still compulsory and enforced by other means, such as expulsion from university or school. The protest started with the murder of Mahsa Amini by the morality police, but Iranians won't rest until the regime is gone. Yeah, right. This, not only do I not believe that this is happening, this isn't what they're asking for at this point. They don't want to just get rid of one of the tools of oppression. They want to get rid of the system producing the oppression.
And I've seen people say, I don't want to call this protest anymore. I want to call it a revolution. We're in the middle of a revolution. Also, not wearing hijabs is not the final goal here. And it's very easy for them to say, there is no morality police anymore. Everything is fine now. Anyway, there is the behavioral police, and the behavioral police is now in charge. It's completely different. Put the hijab back on. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah. Stop brutalizing people. How about that? How about not just temporarily say that you'll have a little bit more freedom when it comes to clothing? Stop utterly brutalizing people and stopping them from living the lives they want to live. How about that?
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.